Sky Squad, we are back in the building, and we have got to talk about this interview that Carlos King did with Jennifer Williams on Reality with the King podcast. It was just released today. And baby, we are diving into the nooks and the crannies of Basketball Wives. We're talking Tammy Roman. We're talking Evelyn Lozada. We're talking Shawnee O'Neal. And of course, we have got to talk about Tim Norman. And who on the Basketball Wives set broke a glass, turned it into a shank, ready to get down, okay? So if you guys haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you guys go ahead and do so. I will place a link for the podcast in the description so that you guys can also listen for yourself. But of course, we're going to give you the rundown and our commentary. So listen, grab yourself a box of popcorn, get your lunch, your coffee, your tea, and get ready, baby, because we're about to get all up into the biznai. So we get into a little bit about how Carlos and Jennifer met. Apparently they met at one of the BET Awards, right? And so right away we get into the Basketball Wives of it all. And, you know, with Basketball Wives being on a hiatus now that Love and Hip Hop Atlanta is back on, you know, we get into this discussion about all of the sort of veterans leaving, like Tammy left. Shawnee's not really on the show anymore. You have Evelyn gone. You know, did Jennifer feel the pressure to keep the show moving? So Jennifer says yes, she did feel pressure. She was used to having several people to the left and right of her, and she really didn't know these girls all that well. And she says it takes the audience time to really get to know the cast. And she herself does not play any type of character on reality TV. She's the same as she is on screen, that she is off screen. So she's not dramatic, or is she going to be the loudest person in the room? So Carlos acknowledged that he felt like something was missing from the current cast. And he also acknowledged that Jen knows how to play her position. So, like, what he means by that is Jen is not going to be what Carlos and Ebony K. Williams dubbed the force multiplier. And what that person is the person that will get the party started. They can change the energy in the room. Let's think about someone like a Kenya Moore, a Nene Leakes, a Bethany Frankel, a Giselle Bryant, a Tammy Roman, and Evelyn Lozada. Those types of characters are missing on this season, right? So basically, Carlos felt like it started off rocky this season, but then towards the middle and the end, he felt like it picked up. So the question was, did Jennifer feel the missing elements of Tammy, Shawnee, and Evelyn? And she says that she feels like the new girls have great personal stories, and it took a minute for the audience to warm up to them. And she felt like the girls knew what they had to do, and that she doesn't want to have to do all of the work. Personally, I don't really know whether or not I feel like all of the ladies who are currently on the show have great personal stories or not. What I do know is that the telling of those personal stories has been handled rather poorly by production, in my opinion. However, back to what they were saying. Carlos says he misses the Jen and Evelyn relationship, and it was really hard to watch their relationship deteriorate. And so Jen says that what people didn't see in season 9, you know, that season with the 2 mansions that we all hated. Okay, even Jen acknowledges that it was a nightmare. And so she says that she only saw her once during that filming, and that Evelyn called her after they wrapped, and they just decided to move forward. They are in a great place. They're not the best of friends, but it's good. And they're always going to have love because they were real friends before Basketball Wives. And Evelyn was even in her wedding. And everything that happened between them and their fallout was real life. So I think that's one of the reasons why people loved and hated that relationship to a certain degree, is because they were friends. And when they did fall out, it really, we as the audience felt something. So, you know, we get into this scene And I forget which season it was, but it was definitely the season where they initially fell out. And, Carlos asked if it was hard to watch that scene with Evelyn trying to run across the table at her after Nia had slapped Jen. So it's Nia or Nia, I can't remember. Anyway, Jen says the moment was crazy because her first instinct isn't to fight. And she remember hearing Tammy telling her, Jennifer, get up, get up, get up. And that's when she got slapped across the face. But she didn't even realize how Evelyn had got involved, and apparently some flowers were thrown. She says that it happened so fast and she couldn't believe that Evelyn would want to physically harm her. So she was confused by what was happening. Now, apparently she also had a conversation with her attorney after that, because Carlos asked, well, did you have a conversation with the producers or the network about your safety? Yes. She says she had her attorneys get involved and they were asking if she was going to go to Tahiti for the cast trip. And she says she was not going if Nia was going to come. And so she was told that Nia wasn't coming. When she was on the plane with Kenya, she found out that the Nia girl was actually in Tahiti. So her lawyers had to get involved and they had to get her a whole separate hotel room. Now, Carlos says that he always felt like Jen was someone that the girls picked on because they knew that she wasn't a fighter. And he thinks that's why a lot of people turned on Evelyn and Malaysia, especially when Malaysia picked up that table and threw it at Jennifer. Jennifer says, you know what? She was only there for 24 hours, but yet in that moment, for some reason, she had zero fear. And she kept asking herself how she was going to throw this big B over the bridge, basically talking about Malaysia. Apparently, a bodyguard was involved in that whole altercation and had to end up getting stitches. And she was literally sitting there thinking to herself that she was literally about to get into a physical altercation with Malaysia. So apparently there was only one producer at the time that she was cool with, and he was the only person that came to her room at the separate hotel to check on her. No one from the network checked on her, and no one else from the production company checked on her, and she was floored by that. Carlos says that this is not the first time that he's heard that either. Jennifer says that they actually recently switched production companies to Truly Original, and it's a more comfortable environment. She can actually pick up the phone and call, Lauren, one of the EPs, or I guess one of the executives at the network, but she could not do that with Shed Media. So Carlos does a great job of educating people on how important it is to have a relationship with your cast from a producer's standpoint, because it helps make the cast a bit more comfortable. So the question is asked, do you miss having Tammy on the show? Jennifer says she does miss having Tammy on the show. She says Tammy's a lot, but she misses something about everyone that's left the show. They are not in the best place, but she says she wishes Tammy much success. Now, on to Shawnee, okay? Was Jen invited to the wedding? Jen says no, she was not. She does not have an issue with Shawnee, and they'll text when something like major is happening or whatever. But she says that even if she did get an invite, it was on Memorial Day weekend and homegirl had plans, okay? So Carlos asks, was there an issue with having Shawnee as a cast member and an executive producer? Because he mentioned that Tammy even alleged that Shawnee would sometimes show her scenes to get her hyped up to go into a scene on 100. Did Jen feel like it was hard to be fair as an EP who doesn't mind saying thank you for your services? And Jennifer was like, it was hard because she could be on the production calls and then she could also have a hand in the editing. So it's really, really intimidating. And I just hearken back to the season where Jen was in the hot seat for allegedly spreading the rumor about Evelyn and Shaq, and how difficult that must have been to be on the outs with Shawnee at that point in time. Because what do you do in that situation where this person that you are now beefing with is kind of sort of like in a position of power? Like, that's got to be a little bit frustrating and daunting. But it's amazing to me because Jennifer never stopped showing up for work. Okay, never. They talked for a brief second about the next 15 and how Jen and Laura had such a great rapport. And why have we not seen Laura Govan, who you guys recall from the first 2 seasons of Basketball Wives Lost LA, why she hasn't come back? And Jennifer says there were actually talks for her to join, but they just never happened. She heard that she was even signing a contract and coming to film. And, Laura would call and ask, well, hey, have you guys started filming? And Jennifer would be like, yeah, we have. And so Jen says that she thinks that the Laura and Shawnee situation might have had a play in that, but she's not sure if they're cool or not. So Carlos basically asks, is the situation that allegedly Laura slept with Shaquille O'Neal? And Jen says, well, that's what the streets had said a long time ago. But Jen also says she's sure that Shaq probably slept with lots of other women. And Shawnee at this point in time is married all over again. Now, they get into about how Basketball Wives this past season started off kind of slow, then got better. And Carlos said it was nice to see the camaraderie at the end. But when it came to Nia and Naria, are we going to see them again? Now, this is where we get to the shanks and things of it all. Jen says it was so crazy. She doesn't really know who threw what, but apparently it got bad because they threw a bottle and it hit Brandy in the back of the head. Now, we did talk about that in our recap. And they were like, she said it was stuff everywhere. And the realtor was actually on her way to the house to do a scene. And the production crew was scrambling to get everything together. Apparently, one of the sisters, Jen is not sure who, took a wine glass, broke it, and made it into a shank, getting ready to throw down with somebody. So apparently Lauren, the producer or the executive from Truly Original, was there, and she was like, shut this scene down, shut it down, shut it down. Jen didn't see the shank, but she is told from other cast members and I think production that the shank was indeed made. So apparently the network reviewed the footage, and these days you're not supposed to be fighting, and basically they got the thank you for your services, and we have not seen them after that. Okay. Now, with regards to the love life, we have talked ad nauseum on this channel about whether or not this thing with her and Jelani are real. Apparently, she did call Carlos and tell him that, she had met somebody on the show. But when asked if they're still together, Jen says this. It's rather cryptic. She says there is a second part of the season that's going to air. Apparently, they finished filming the first part of the season like in last October, okay? A year ago, and the second part is going to air soon. So she doesn't want to give away, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, y'all not together. She says that he's an awesome guy. He has an amazing family. And apparently Carlos has met a lot of her boyfriends on and off camera, but not this one. Wonder why? Now, what can we expect from the second part of the season? Jen said it's going to start crazy. There's some friendships that are broken. Someone exits. My guess is that it's Malaysia that exits, or could it be British? I don't know. Anyway, Carlos says that he doesn't want any spoilers, and I'm like, Carlos, speak for yourself, because I want the spoilers. But anyway, she said that the second part is better than the first, okay? And she said she actually had to call Carlos because she was nervous, because this was the first time ever in the history of Basketball Wives that they would have a female producer producing the show. And I'm assuming this female producer is starting the second half of the season. But apparently it was great because she understood female dynamics. So then we get into the Tim Norman of it all. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, Tim Norman of Sweetie Pie's fame, who was alleged to have put a hit out on his nephew, Jennifer Williams, used to date him. Jen says as soon as Carlos mentions him, oh, not him, honey. So apparently when Carlos met Tim with Jennifer, he was nice and seemed sweet. He pulled out her chair. He spoiled her. But apparently months later, it was in the news that he was stalking her. Then supposedly he put a hit out on his nephew to end his life, and now he's in jail. So she says that she saw a side of him that was crazy, I don't want to say early on, but she ended up seeing it. And she said she never would have thought that he would have put a hit out on his nephew. Now, he says that, he had actually walked her down the street where the nephew got the hit at, okay? She remembered when the news came out, and she says that, this whole, the idea of him stalking her and being very jealous. And she tells the story of this one time when they were in Pink Taco in LA in a booth. And she was looking at the TV, and there was a guy across the table next to them. And Tim just goes like bananas, crazy, asking the guy why he kept looking at them. And the guy's like, you guys look familiar. Duh, they're TV personalities. And Tim was about to apparently flip the table. He screamed at the guy to stop looking at them. And then in the car, he's screaming at Jennifer that it's her fault because she kept looking at the guy. So get this, the next day when because she called her friend that night and she was like, I'm a little bit concerned. She didn't know what to do. So apparently the next day while he was at the gym, he ended up sending her like message after message after message of articles and articles of nonverbal behavior, basically talking about how it was her fault that the guy was looking because she had her legs crossed and was nonverbally inviting the guy to look at her, pretty much gaslighting her to think that she did something wrong. And at this point, she was freaked out. So of course, Carlos had to ask, did this man ever put his hands on you? And Jen says, no, the whole thing came out about the nephew and she was surprised, and she ended up sending a message to his cousin saying that she was praying for the family. But it was vindicating for her because she says when her story came out about him, allegedly stalking her, people thought that she was just clout chasing, okay? She goes into a lot of the reasons why she felt like she was vulnerable at that time she met him, because she lost her mom around that same time. Then we get into the guy that stole her Range Rover. Apparently this dude that came with her to church at some point. So you guys know that Jennifer is working on a documentary about this subject called Scam Likely. And apparently she's partnered with Angela Yee to do it. She's been working on it for 2 years. Okay. And after going public with that Range Rover story that we talked about it on this channel, she had tons of people reach out to her about the same guy, women, men, gay men, his family. And apparently these people have been going through this with this man for over, I guess, a decade or so. So that's the reason why she developed this documentary that's finally been picked up. And she says that she was so annoyed because she kept seeing other documentaries come out, like The Tinder Swindler, Inventing Anna. And now she's finally getting her opportunity because she is partnered with Half Yards, and it will be out on VH1. She doesn't have a date yet, but apparently this will also be a major part of the storyline on Basketball Wives, the upcoming season, which is 10B. Listen, you guys have got to listen to this yourself. Down below in the description is the podcast. It is good. It is juicy. It is exactly what we would expect. Carlos asked the questions. We got the answers. And listen, I'm excited for Basketball Wives to return, because if it's going to be this good, I'm all here for it. Let me know what you guys think in the description down below in the comment section. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell button, and I will catch you in the next video.